Welcome back, friends, to Thrive and Align podcast. Today, we're going to talk about Biofield Tuning. We are very fortunate. We've got Sandra Lee back with us today to explore a little bit more, introduce to us what Biofield Tuning is and the benefits.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's fun. I appreciate being invited.
Thank you for joining.
We're nerds, so we love learning. So we appreciate having someone teach us.
Yeah. So you want me to start talking about what Biofield Tuning is?
Yeah,
that can be helpful.
Okay. Yeah, about the biofield.
So Biofield Tuning is a form of sound therapy. There's a lot of people who say they do sound therapy, and there's so many different ways of doing it. So it uses tuning forks, okay? And I make sound. And the way we work with Biofield Tuning is I create a hologram that represents you or whatever it is I'm working on. I can work on a person, work on a relationship, work on a business, work on a project, work on anything, okay? But I create a hologram that represents who it is I'm working on. And I'm going to show you something we call the Biofield Anatomy Map, okay? So in Biofield Tuning, this is the map that we use. And so it's got the energy field. You've all heard of the aura,
yeah,
right? So that's the energy field, and it's bioelectric, which is really cool, right? So it's like, Carmen, you were saying you work with electricity, voltage, right? This is going to affect that, okay? And out here at the edge of the field, there's like, part of doing Biofield Tuning is I strike the fork and then I come in and I can feel when I've gotten to that edge of the field. I can feel when I get to the membrane because I'm feeling the electricity out here, okay? Everything in the body is bioelectric. We've got all these ions, all these charges, all of this energy flow. That's all electric, okay? So when I am working with the biofield, I am working with that. Okay, you can see you have all of these chakra centers here. So all of the energies that we work with in chakras, we work with in Biofield Tuning. Okay, this point down here, this is the Earth star. This is the point below your feet that connects you to the Earth. And then this up here is the Sun star, the point above the head that connects you to the sun. So there is a channel that goes between the Earth star and the Sun star, and there's an electric flow that goes through the body, okay? So energy comes from the Earth, goes up through the channel, and it goes around, and it cycles around like that. So you might have seen pictures on the internet of the torus, right? The torus shape. This is a torus, okay? So energy comes down from the sun, through, and then it goes around. Energy comes up and it goes around. So that's the structure of your aura, of your energy field. So in Biofield Tuning, I am working with that energetic structure. And there's a couple of different ways that I talk about this. For my body to work properly, the energy needs to flow through it.
Yes.
And as a massage therapist for 30 years, what I was consciously working on was blocks in the energy that keep things from flowing. Energy needs to come from the earth, through my body, and out the top of my head. And energy needs to come from the sun, down through my body, connecting me to the earth. I was working with that before I started doing Biofield Tuning. And Biofield Tuning comes as like, hey, that's what I do anyway, okay? When my muscles are tight in my shoulders, and I'm sure you guys have both found people who have tight neck and shoulders, right? My energy is stuck there, right? And you can hear, I can't talk. I can't be myself when I've got all that tension.
Yeah.
When I let the energy flow, there's so much more freedom to be myself. So much more freedom to be the person I want to be, to live the life I want to live.
And so can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
So we talk about in our program, you have a thought. The thought creates a chemical reaction, right? And that chemical reaction is an emotion. It's a feeling, right? It's energy that travels through the body. And if we don't process that emotion, it gets stored or stuck in the body in different places.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So when I am doing body work, I can feel in the body where the energy is blocked,
Mm-hmm.
and I use tuning forks to help get it to move.
Mm-hmm.
I also work with the thought processes,
Mm-hmm.
right? People's thoughts, people's stresses, people's trauma is stored in the body. Body stores stress.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was doing massage therapy, I was already doing this, working with the stresses, the experiences, the traumas in the body, and helping the person be aware of it and then let it flow out. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I do biofield tuning, I'm even more effective at that, because when I strike the tuning fork, I can see energetically where the energy gets stuck, and I get a lot of intuitive information. And so I get all sorts of information about the emotion, about the belief systems, about the trauma, about the posture, all these different things about what's in that energy block, and then helping it to be able to flow.
Mm-hmm.
And like Kimberly was just talking about, what I pick up in the energy field is completely dependent on the context.
Mm-hmm.
So we might be going along and everything is good, and then something comes up, either just in their thoughts or in what I'm picking up, and we start talking about it, and like the energy can be completely different. It's flowing in 1 second, and then something upsetting comes up. It's like, oop, and the energy gets all blocked instantaneously.
Mm.
Yeah.
So thinking about how my thoughts create chemical reaction in body, creates emotion, and it affects how my body functions, affects how I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it's instantaneous like that.
Yes.
So if we take a circumstance where somebody has a problem, right, a big stress going on in their life, their body gets all tight and blocked up
Mm-hmm.
about it. And then their relationships are affected, their ability to work is affected. It affects everything.
Mm-hmm.
When we help them be aware of, this is what's causing all of these downstream effects, and do you want to let all of that stress and trauma and pressure in your body? With awareness of that, they can make different choices, choose to let it go, and then that frees them up.
Mm-hmm.
And the downstream health effects that Carmen winds up working with, right? You start being able to make a difference with that.
Yeah.
I'm sure you believe, like I do, that for something to manifest physically, it needs to have been present and entrenched in their thoughts, in their actions, in their activity for decades.
Mm-hmm.
Decades. So, from the very beginning of the time when we start pulling that apart and allowing there to be more flow, allows their body to have more energetic flow. There's more electricity that's moving. The meridians have more energy flowing through them, right? So that everything can get back to being able to function again.
Mm-hmm.
And with the crazy amount of stress that people are under right now, that's going to be having effects in people's physical health, mental health, decades down the line.
Yep.
Creating more work for, Carmen.
Well, all of us to a certain extent.
Everybody, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna see this moment in time from the pandemic. Let's say this is like last 5 years, okay? We're in possibility land, okay? We're gonna see this 5-year blip in humanity 50 years from now still have emotional and physiological impact, because the mom is carrying the babies.
Mm-hmm.
It's being transferred to babies. That baby happens to be female, it's transferred to her eggs. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. So we all work with and are aware of the trauma that happened in World War II.
okay.
And this is one of those things that humanity is going to be dealing with, what happened in World War II forever,
Mm-hmm.
right? Anytime therapeutic kind of stuff, issues come up associated with the things that happened in World War II. I mean, think about how many people have scarcity consciousness. right? There's
Yeah.
not enough money. There's not enough resources. That's World War II.
Interesting.
Think about, the Salem witch trials, right? Long, long, long time. I don't even know when that was,
Yeah.
right? How many people have this thing about, I can't do this woo-woo kind of thing because I'll be persecuted?
Yeah, you're right.
That's Salem witch trials,
Yeah.
right? And we
So
repeat
interesting.
those patterns over and over again, right? Think about the patterns that are going to be repeated from 2020, 2021 for a long time. This is going to be one of the standard sets of themes, I think, that people are going to be dealing with forever.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I believe that's true. Yeah. I mean, we're seeing it just within the last couple years, as far as the medical world goes, increases in mental health concerns, right? Increases in prescriptions, increases in even chronic pain and chronic illnesses, right? Just from the emotional stress, that people are experiencing, not even to mention the physical stress from being ill, that it is having lasting effects for some folks.
Yeah. One of the big areas that I think this is going to show up is in the throat.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to start seeing an increase in thyroid issues. So it's like thinking about the throat, right? In human design, which we talked about last week, and in biofield tuning, right? The throat is the area where expression occurs, communication occurs. We have been so suppressed in this whole time, associated with our ability to express ourselves and be heard. In human design, the activity that I do, the work that I do, that's all throat chakra energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking who I am and expressing it in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We have been so impacted by this whole shutdown and the censorship things, all of this stuff that has been happening in this really intense time. A lot of it centers around the throat.
Yeah.
And our ability to be ourselves.
Yeah. It doesn't feel safe.
It doesn't feel safe.
In our current society, which is so crazy, that's the whole agenda, is to help people feel safe, right? Like inclusivity, feel safe. And it's like, it does not feel safe to be you and express your truth.
Yeah. So that is showing up in biofield tuning sessions all of the time.
I imagine. Yeah.
And it's like sometimes when I start working with somebody in biofield tuning, they are basically not functioning. They are so overwhelmed by stress and by dealing with, the world out there. I've worked with people who can't sleep, who can't eat, who can't go out and do anything. They are so shut down by that stress. And with biofield tuning, it just helped them release all of that trauma. Yeah. And part of why the trauma is so impactful is because it activates stuff from the past. Mm-hmm. Trauma from the past. Mm-hmm. And blows up all of that old stuff and makes it even bigger in the current.
Yeah.
And so just helping people to release those ties to that old stuff and then let go of the trauma energy from current so that they can live their lives. I look at it that, I have this energy field, and anytime something happens that is unresolved, difficult, it's like I get a ball of stress, trauma in my field. And some people have so much trauma in their field from their history that it's like the world sees me through all of this balls of trauma. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I look out at the world through all of the trauma, and it filters, it changes what I'm able to perceive out there.
Yeah, for sure.
And, we've all heard that, with all of this old stuff, I attract more of the same thing. Mm-hmm. That's because this is in the way, right? That's what the world thinks I am. is all of this trauma. They can't see me. They see my history, right? So with biofield tuning and, with what you guys do, I think of it that what I'm doing is I'm taking these balls of trauma and I'm collapsing them.
Okay.
And we can never unhappen what happened.
Right.
What we can do is we can make it so I can see more clearly, like based on who I actually am, rather than all of these balls of stress.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I take all this stuff and collapse it, and then there's some space for me to just be myself.
Okay. Yeah.
So interesting. I
That
would
is-
love to know I mean, so I don't know, Carmen, I didn't tell you this, but Sandra has a degree in chemistry. So we're all like science nerds. But I mean, my brain is like, oh, I want to know like scientifically how this works because I understand energy and frequency, like E equals MC squared. You guys are science people more than me. Is matter creates energy creates matter and matter creates more matter, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Matter or energy can't be destroyed.
Yeah.
Created.
So I get it. It's just like, so the tuning forks change the frequency that we are putting off, or we're like, let's say my frequency is this, your tuning forks are like faster. So it makes my frequency match up with those. Is that?
Biofield tuning works with the distortion in the sound. It doesn't work so much purely with just the frequencies,
Okay.
right? There are some tuning fork systems that have a different tuning fork, a different frequency for each organ, each issue.
Okay.
And that's kind of overwhelming. I started out with a tuning fork system that's like that, and it's like, whoa, there's just too many tuning forks. What I like about biofield tuning is we have much fewer tuning forks.
Okay.
Because there's a whole range of different frequencies in this, and the work is done by when I have an issue, it can pull whichever parts of the frequency spectrum are available,
Okay.
and then to help to shift it. Okay, now there's another aspect. So sound is the most powerful creative force. Sound is the foundational creative force. If we think to all of the spiritual traditions and their sacred texts, they all have some version of first there was the word, and then there was light. Sound precedes light. Sound is what created light. And I didn't realize this until I started doing biofield tuning. And I started realizing, wow, I'm really like changing something here. Because the story that I tell people most often is pandemic started, and I couldn't do massage on people, right? And I have a friend who lives 5 minutes from here who had fallen on the vacuum cleaner with her hand, and it was black and blue and she couldn't open it. I called her on the telephone and I did biofield tuning on her. And while I was working on her, the bruise went away and she was able to open her hand. While I'm working on her on the telephone. Yeah. And that's what it's like, wow, I'm actually doing something. This is having an effect, right? So something about the sound. And I think it has to do with sound waves going through and shifting things. Sound travels through water, sound travels through air. But I don't entirely understand the physics of it. Eileen McCusick is the creator of Biofield Tuning, and she's done all the work and the research on the science and stuff like that. I just know that it really does have a different level of effect. Yeah. And then when I'm working, I get a huge amount of intuitive information. But there's something about the sound and the way we do biofield tuning that gives me access to so much more information. I mean, I've been intuitive for decades, and in doing body work and energy work, getting intuitive information. But when I started doing biofield tuning, it's like I went from getting this much intuitive information to there's like so much more.
Wow.
And I get information that they didn't tell me. I believe that a person's energy field has information that they need to hear, and that somehow their energy field shows it to me so that I can be the voice that gives it to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm not, I would not say that I'm super familiar with biofield tuning, but what it sounds like, how I can relate it to my practice and how I work with folks. There's a couple of different things that you touched on that I just kind of wanted to reiterate. So I do acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. And so we work with congestion, we work with the flow of energy. And so we target specific points within the meridian systems to open up that flow, which sounds very familiar to what you're doing with the tuning forks. Now, Kim, when you ask, like, well, what's the science behind that? Well, I mean, I don't work a lot with sound, but we do know sound travels. And you think of like how sound, you've seen like singers, and we know sound can break glass, right? That's because of the frequency that sound can create. So it can change. So it is energy, but it's that frequency.
Resonance.
Thank you. Can change those molecules, if you will, right? And so the way that Sandra, the way you're describing those trauma bubbles, right, or balls, maybe you didn't say bubbles in my mind, I translated that to bubbles, within our energetic field, right, that it makes sense to me when you're saying you're using sound and tuning forks, right, to collapse those bubbles, because you're breaking that energetic field within, or that have been created, right, by how we perceive and how we've experienced our trauma.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm the lay person in the group, right? And so I try to speak to the lay people on our podcast that have a more simpler mind like me. What I'm hearing from both of you is like, we have this field, and again, I'm putting it in my terms. Okay. So it's like these molecules that have electrons, neutrons, and protons, right? And they're spinning. Okay. That's the energy. And so these guys that are from trauma have their own thing. Like they went rogue, and they're like spinning in this very confusing way. And they've clustered together to create this stress ball of like chaotic spinning. And you're saying that this like frequency resonance, like just tells these people to calm the fuck down and like break them up so they can like start behaving and spinning properly like the rest of the people, like the rest of the molecules. Is that it? Ish?
Maybe that's an interesting way to describe it. When I think that may be a very simplified way to say that. Yeah. But when you're thinking like when you tune a guitar, right? Like when you tune an instrument, you're trying to align those vibrations, right? So in that sense, yes, I suspect by using a tuning fork on our biofield, right, that you're helping to kind of break up that congestion or those clusters of energetic. I always think of trauma and stress as energetic tangles, but that would be, yeah, like those stress bubbles or balls that are created, I think, within our physical body as well as our biofield around us. Yeah.
Let's look at this from a cellular perspective.
Okay.
Okay.
I like that.
So say there's this cell in the body,
Yes.
and it's going along and it's happy. Okay.
Mhm.
And then me as the person who's, has this cell inside my body, I've just got this really big stress and I've been eating bad food and, I'm not getting enough sleep. I mean, all the things that you guys know you need to do to be healthy. And so overall, the cells in my body are just a little bogged down.
Okay.
They're not very happy. They're not very healthy. They got all kinds of waste and stuff in there because they're not been able to detoxify. Okay. So it's like to have a nice, healthy cell, say that it's got a nice clear vibration like this. Okay. But because I bogged it down, it's just doesn't have quite as much energy. It's a little bit sluggish. And so it's just having a hard time. Right. And it's not going to perform its function very well, is it?
Right.
And thinking about the trillions of cells in here that they each have to perform their function. And when I'm super stressed and I'm eating all kinds of garbage and I've got chemical exposure and I've got mold in my walls and all this stuff, right? My body is overwhelmed with everything that it has to deal with. And all of my little cells in here are just like, right? And we're not able to replicate because we don't have the energy for replication. So I can't heal myself very well. I got all this inflammation hanging around. Okay. So that's what it's like, just like having all this stress. Now imagine we can come in with some sound frequency and say, wow, you've got all that stress. Why don't you let that stress go? And, as a massage therapist forever, I do a lot of work with what I call physiology. I understand body parts and body functions and cell functions and immune system and lymphatics. So it's like, and I go in here, it's like, let's help the lymphatics be able to release some of that inflammation, get some of that toxins out, right? Using sound and frequency and intention, okay? So that the body is just able to let go. It's like, oh, all that stuff that happened in the past that made me feel like I'm a bad person, that I don't know how to do what I need to do. Let all that stuff go. So let some of that stuff out of my field, right? And then my cells in my body, because I've let some of the garbage go, the cells in my body don't have like so much loading them down. So I was like, oh, I can work a little bit better. Like what happens when I clean up my diet? Right? And I start doing Epsom salt baths and castor oil packs, right? I do my chi machine. I go out and I do my walks, right? And I get more life going in my body. It's able to release some of the stress. My cells in there are going to be way a lot happier.
Yeah.
And I have the energy to be able to go and heal some of my thyroid stuff, heal some of my lower back things, right? When I let go of the stress, my body has more resources.
Okay.
When my body is not as overwhelmed and stressed out, I have time and energy to go and start cleaning up that mess over there and heal that injury that I got ages and ages ago, right? That's how I think of it. One of the ways I think of it.
So it's almost like, let's say there's a person that's like super bogged down, right? It's just like and I always like to give my clients, like, we've been so heavily programmed, we don't even know we're programmed. You don't even know you're in the program, right? And so we're like living in this programming, in victim mentality, stressed out, all this trauma. It's like, stop one, go to Sandra, like help alleviate, clear it out, right? Then you go to Carmen to help address the health issues that all of this, I'm going to call it mental stress, because that's what I believe in, that the mental stress has now manifested into physical symptoms, right? And then you hit me up to like reprogram the way your brain is thinking. So it's like, that is how we set ourselves up to completely change our health and our lives, is we have to move through all of this to a place where, yeah. Because if they start with me, it's so hard to like change the programming when I'm bogged down over here with all of this, just everything, like all the trauma and the stress, right? Like I can't see through all those balls. Like, you want me to change my thought about this? All thoughts are optional, Kim. I can't even see past this ball that's in stress ball in front of my face. Anyways, I'm just like processing this.
Absolutely.
I did want to ask one question because I think you hit on it here just this last bit, is that my understanding is that intention is a big component of biofield tuning, and being able to get the progress that one needs to help to kind of clear the fields. Is that true? Or is it that sometimes you can still address, especially with your gift of intuition, be able to address a lot of things and maybe that people aren't even aware of during one of your sessions?
All of the above.
Okay, I would say, how does that
Yeah.
work?
Yeah. So every session I start, whether it's human design or biofield tuning, I ask someone what they want to work on,
Okay.
what they're struggling with. Okay. And so that kind of sets the context, right? We set an intention that this is what we want to work on in our session today. Okay. What winds up happening is we wind up working, yes, hopefully we get to that actual issue, but we work on a bunch of other things that are feeding into it too.
Okay.
So a lot of times what winds up happening is all of the areas where the person has stress, it all gets tied together and we see how they all relate. I know that certainly happened in Kimberly's session.
You can totally
Right?
share my session. You can share my session, like how we were working on my kidneys and you hit the
Yeah. So, one of Kimberly's ongoing issues is her kidneys, her health. And, but we saw how it relates to stuff from childhood, stuff from this, that all of these different things, they're all tied together. And Carmen, that when you address one key area of their health, that affects everything about their health. Anytime someone does anything positive to help themselves, it's going to downstream filter into everything else too.
Yeah.
We've often heard, how you do anything is how you do everything. That's true. And, thinking, right? How I think is going to affect everything. How I feel about this, it's going to affect everything. Can't separate anything out. We're holistic, right? And when, the last episode, we talked about human design. Now we're talking about biofield tuning. I do them together.
Okay.
So when I am doing biofield tuning, and I have done human design with the person, okay, and I did this with Kimberly, right? We're doing biofield tuning. I was like, oh, I wonder how what's coming up in biofield tuning shows up in the human design chart. So we look at the human design chart. It's like, oh, yeah, this issue that you have from the past or from whatever, right, showing up in human design, showing up in biofield tuning. And we work with them together with the sound and the intention.
Okay. Yeah. That's perfect. From my perspective, you're gathering more. I always think of you're gathering more information, right? You're putting more pieces of somebody's puzzle together to be able to help them to promote their wellness, right? Their well-being, their health, their mental health, their physical health.
Yeah. The model that you two have already of working together with people is an example of how I operate, right? So it's like if I have myself and my issue, right? And there's this crystal here and it's got lots of facets on it, right? A person has so many facets. And if I work with them just with one thing, right? I'm not going to make much progress.
Yeah.
So it's like the example of this is counseling, right? There are some people who go to counselors for decades. Yes. They never graduate from counseling because it's all this one thing. And this person and their issues, if they want to, they can escape. They can get around what the counselor is doing. When you work with the person from multiple perspectives, we've got naturopathy, and you've got many perspectives just with naturopathy, right? And then Kimberly brings her various methods in from coaching, right? This person can't escape in the same way because we're approaching it from multiple directions at one time. And they're going to make much more change because of this multimodal approach.
Yes.
So when I started listening to your podcast and listening to Kimberly talk about it, it's like, oh, that's great. You're bringing in this multiple approach so that people can actually really heal and make progress.
And what's so crazy about it, Sandra, is so when we started New Beginnings back, we ran beta back in August, I think. Yeah. That's when we officially launched like the combination, right? Where they do coaching and then they take the neurotransmitter, the hormone and the adrenal panel. And then they meet with Carmen at the halfway point, right? Is we have, and tell me if I'm saying this wrong, Carmen, we have like case study after case study of evidence and data to show the amount of progress, how much faster these people are like healing mentally and physically and creating results that they've only dreamed of in their life in a much shorter time span. Mm-hmm. So it's like so cool that we have the scientific data. Is that right? Can I say that?
Yes, you can say that.
To prove that multimodal effects will get your results faster.
Yep. Just within my practice, okay, I have people who just want to start a business, and we start with human design, and then we do biofield tuning, and just with me and my two modes, right? They make so much progress, partly because of the combination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Cool. Do you have anything else, Carmen?
I don't think so. I appreciate your time and spending with us today, Sandra, and learning about the biofield tuning and helping us get a better understanding as to other ways and other approaches to address our health, to address our energetic fields, and to be able, to stimulate that healing in other ways. Thank you very much for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been fun.
It's been fun. So just I will put in the show notes again, your website, but I just want, in case people didn't listen to the last episode, like where can they connect to work with you?
So my website is miracleinspirations.com. And when they go there, they can pull their human design chart for free, and they can book an assessment. So if they want to talk with me about how human design and biofield tuning might help them, then they're welcome to do that there. I have a blog, and I'm just starting a blog series, Body Stores Stress, where I'm going to talk about the different ways that the body stores stress. And also, I didn't mention this last time, I have once a month, I have a tune-in session where for 10 minutes, this is free, on the second Thursday of the month at 12 o'clock Pacific time, 10 minutes of coming and doing biofield tuning and tuning an intention that you have. So something that you care about, that you want to give energy to. So that's going to be on the 13th. Well, it depends on when this podcast broadcasts, but the second Thursday of the month at 12 o'clock Pacific.
Where do they find that at?
If they go to my website, there's a page there for tune in, and the link and information will be there.
Perfect.
I did want to ask real quick, is that a lot of your the services that you offer, are they in person or distance for folks?
All Zoom.
Okay, perfect.
It's all remote.
All right.
And this has been one of the gifts actually for me of the pandemic shutdown, because I would not have done this business this way, and I would not be where I am now if it hadn't been for shutting down my massage practice.
Yeah. I love it. I was telling my clients yesterday, I'm like, even if the pandemic ends and like we all go back in person, I will not. Like my coaching practice will always be Zoom. I just love the buffer of like, I can feel your energy, but having the buffer that my physical body doesn't have to take on that energy is amazing.
Well, and sometimes people want to have biofield tuning in person.
Yeah.
The truth is, I prefer online, because when I've got a person's body here, I mean, it's great to be able to work with the person in their body, but I can't do the same things as I do when I'm doing it all in my head. Because when I'm doing it Zoom, it literally is all here, and I'm not working with a physical body. so much. So I really prefer doing it with, people online. I had someone who had fallen on her rib cage, and she was afraid that she had broken 2 ribs. She actually came here, um, and she was so fragile that I didn't want to work on her, but even with tuning forks. So I set her in the chair, and then I pulled out a chart and I worked on the vertebrae and on the ribs on the chart. And when she came in, she was limping. She couldn't put her bra on. She couldn't like button her pants, right? Because she was so fragile from having hurt her rib cage. And, when she left, she just like walked out normal.
Wow.
Yeah.
I might not have been able to do as much if I'd been working on her physical body.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Anything else? Any last thoughts, Sandra?
Allow yourself to be grounded. Like when you feel stressed, you don't need me. Allow yourself to feel the connection to the earth and draw that energy up, and allow yourself to feel supported by the earth, because the earth is always here giving you energy. You're always supported by the sun. So in this time of so much stress, like let the stress go and allow yourself to feel supported. In this time, I think people really don't feel supported. So the earth and the sun are always here. God, if you believe in God, right? Always here, just providing that energetic support and allowing yourself to receive it.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Perfect reminder. Thank you.
Yes. A perfect way to end this. Thank you so much, Sandra.
Thanks.